So, listeners, there's something you should know. I am Lou's father's, brother's, cousin's, nephew's former roommate, which means absolutely nothing.
Want to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Master the Art of Connecting and professional speaker Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on the planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another spectacular episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have the author of the Career Toolkit, Essential Skills for Success That No One Taught You. He has spent his career launching and fixing new ventures at startups, Fortune 500 companies, and academia. He's developed new software languages, online marketplaces, new authentication systems, and tracked criminals and terrorists on the dark web. I'm going to love this podcast. He's got an MIT degree, so it means he's smart, and that means he's got a brass rat on his finger. Thrive Loud listeners, I bring you Mark Herschberg. Mark, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm excited to have you, but I am not alone because listeners need to know if you've been listening to podcasts, Mark has been out there. He's been on a ton of programs promoting this message and getting out there, which is spectacular. But I want to do a little decoding. All right. I'm going to go a little off the reservation than your typical podcast interview because that's what we do here on Thrive Loud. So Mark, I kind of want to understand how the work that and the message that you're focused on became your gig.
It's kind of interesting. I've had this interesting dual career. I began as a software engineer coming out of MIT in the 90s and realized I wanted to become a CTO, a chief technology officer. To do that, I realized it wasn't just about being the best engineer, not just about solving problems. There were these other skills, leadership, networking, negotiating, team building. No one ever taught me this stuff. So I had to develop it in myself. And as I did so, I wanted to develop it in others. In parallel, MIT had gotten feedback from companies saying these are the skills they want to see in everyone, not just the MIT students they hire, not just college students, in everyone they hire everywhere, but they couldn't find it. So as I was developing up my team, I heard MIT was trying to do this. I reached out and offered to help. And they actually asked me, I thought I'd just give them a couple things I created. They actually asked me to help create the class and then to teach, which I've been doing for 20 years. And that turned into, in parallel to my career as a CTO, the Career Toolkit and my speaking and app and everything I do with that.
Okay, I'm going to double click down. We're also going to give a shout out to Professor Lowe from the Sloan School, who you may know. I actually was one of the graduates of his program when I worked on Wall Street and loved everything that they had to do over there. There's some smart people at that university. I'm just going to say, just going to throw it out there.
Got a few.
Okay, so let's just talk about when you tried to figure out what's missing, what they're not teaching you. What was the prioritization of this? When did you say, okay, I obviously you mentioned from leadership to certain development pieces. There is a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily taught, but even just prioritizing, okay, what are the tools you need? How did you kind of siphon and figure out how to prioritize and tackle your toolkit?
For me, it began by looking and saying, given the job I want, what are the requirements? And I don't mean what they post in some online ad, because while those are requirements, they are lacking. There's a whole bunch of things they don't mention. So I was speaking to people in the role. I was watching people who was successful, who wasn't, what is it they had? And that's how I began creating my list. And then thankfully, MIT and other universities started to create these comprehensive lists. And that helped me fill in what I hadn't noticed already on my own.
Okay, so let's hit this. You started going through this. What was, I want to say, the surprise? The thing that you said, I can't believe that they don't teach this. What was the number one of those things? I know there's a lot of them, but there must have been one that stuck out. You said, I cannot believe this is something that we aren't taught.
Well, let's take a very obvious one, networking. Because networking is a skill. I remember my mother telling me it was important to network. Teachers, professors, they all say, oh, networking is important. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Everyone kept emphasizing the importance of networking, but no one actually said, and here's how to do it. So they clearly knew this was important. Somehow we just skipped the execution.
Okay. And by the way, I agree with you. And I also think that there's lots of ways to go about doing it. Do you think it's because the other things that we were taught in school they deemed were more important? Because I would actually argue that the things that you're putting in the toolkit are equally, if not more so important than the things that we need to learn. Help me understand what's wrong with the curricula.
It's for historical reasons. At the high school level, it's because high school is a modern invention going back about 150 years that was designed to educate us as we left the farms and went into the industrialized world. You needed to know reading, writing, and arithmetic so you could count the screws you had. You could not walk into the room marked danger. That's all you need. You didn't need to network to work on the assembly line. And that's really what high school was designed for. Now, the university system, that's a little older, goes back about 900 years, but it's run by professors. We both obviously like professors, they're great people, but they are very narrow in what they're experts in. And so what happens is you say, well, I want to be an accountant. And the accounting professors say, okay, well, if you take all these classes, we'll give you a piece of paper saying you know accounting. That's all it says. It doesn't say you're a good accountant. Certainly doesn't say you're a good employee. It just says you have acquired this knowledge. And that might have been sufficient circa 1950 when we were cogs in the machine and you sat at your desk and did what your boss told you. But in today's modern world, that's not sufficient, as you pointed out. We need these other skills, but unfortunately, academia moves at a glacial pace and has not yet adapted to the new normal.
Who is this toolkit catered to? I want to give me a second here. Are we talking about those that are in the educational system from high school into college? Are we talking about those that are already in the workforce? Or are we trying to get those that missed out on it all the years back that are later on in the workforce in their careers? Who's it fit for?
The book is for anyone who says, I wish I was better at having a career plan, networking, communicating, leading, any of these skills. That's what it's there for. Certainly early in your career, fantastic. We've had people in their 40s, 50s, even 60s say, oh, wow, I wish I had this years ago, but I'm so glad I have it now. Or it's for HR and executives who say, I want my whole team to be upskilled. Let's get them all together. So use the book as well as the free development program, which you can actually use without the book if you want to upskill your team and become more effective.
Mark, it's really interesting. What's ringing in my head right now, the question to ask here is the drill down component to this. And I want to get to this point. There's a lot of takes on how you should be leading or how you can be selling or how you can be networking. They're not all one size fit all. It isn't just something that fits in a box. How are you providing this content to those that are listening? You're giving the essential skills, but obviously there's different ways to do things and everyone's got innovative ways. How are you figuring out what goes into your Career Toolkit curricula?
Great question. And you're right that any of my chapters could be an entire book, a series of books. You can do PhDs on leadership on one small section. So what's different about my book? A few things. First, my book doesn't have to be read in a linear order. You can jump to chapter 8, then go to chapter 2, back to 6. Read it in any order you want. Pick up the tool you need when you need it. Second, each chapter involves a mental shift, changing how you look at that particular skill. And that's the important piece, followed by a number of actionable things you can do, practical advice you can implement immediately. And then I have next steps if and when you want to go further. And I have additional resources on the website for people who want to continue developing.
Okay, Mark. Now I'm going to play the tough guy here. I'm sorry. I got to do this. Okay.
Please bring it on.
It is really hard for you can be the jack of all trades, the master of all, or the master of none, right? If you spread yourself wide with all these different skills, there's a lot of skills that you're mentioning that are in here. How can you tap into the expertise on this, right? I speak about just connecting, and I certainly won't be able to talk about other aspects of technology or other things like that. I'm not going to jump into that lane. How could you jump into all these lanes and provide the knowledge that everybody has, right? Because there's so many experts in each one of these areas.
First, I'm not saying I made this up all myself. Remember, I've been teaching for 20 years, including with great professors from Sloan. And so over the years, we figured out what are the really essential pieces. We've distilled it down. We know how to teach it effectively. I know when I say this, here are the next 3 questions. I've gotten that feedback in the book. People say, I read something, I have a question, I flip the page, you addressed it. Yeah, because I've been teaching this for 20 years. So it's been thanks to all the people I've taught with, not just I figured this out sometime long ago, everyone together. And this is the sum total of many, many wonderful people.
The connected way of teaching. I like this, as opposed to one size fits all. It's all the people come together to help everybody. I like where you're going with this, Mark.
And remember that for most things, you don't have to be the world's greatest expert. Here's the example I give to my students. Imagine you're 25 years old, you have a job offer for $60,000, but instead of taking it, you've learned a little bit about negotiating. So you go and negotiate that offer. And in 5 minutes, you get $61,000. That's pretty small. You don't have to be the best negotiator in the world. So you get $1,000 more. If you do nothing else, if you sit in that job for the next 40 years till you retire, you've gotten $1,000 more for 40 years. Little bit of negotiating just got you $40,000. But of course, you're going to have other jobs, you're going to have promotions, you'll have raises, you negotiate other things. Learning to negotiate, not about being the world's greatest, just getting a tiny bit better, and you can add hundreds of thousands of dollars to your lifetime earning. Now, of course, we can do the math with negotiating, but this applies to everything. If you're a slightly better networker, no one says, here's $1,000 more, but you get more opportunities. If you lead better, you stand out more, you get faster promotions. It's about being just a little bit better, and it has a massive ROI on your overall success.
So I've always joked about this, that lawyers go to law school and they have no idea how to practice the law. Accountants learn accounting. They don't understand all the aspects of business accounting. Let's try to reverse engineer this, because I know that's where your mind comes from. Yes, it's glacier on getting to the education level. Do you see a world where this stuff is being taught in the earlier years because people have recognized that that's more important than learning the reading and writing and arithmetic, which we know is important, but being able to put that into the message because of the fact that you're missing out. Look, we know when we're in our learning modes in school, we actually are better at absorbing it. But this is also preparing you for your career, so you're getting it closer to your career. Help me understand where you can see down the road how this can become part of everybody's learning.
I very much push for this to be in high school and even starting to just be brought up in middle school. Now, there are other things I don't cover that should be there as well, like financial literacy. And yes, this should not replace reading, writing, arithmetic, and so many other important things we do. But consider, let's take negotiations. Most negotiations aren't about your salary. They are about resolving different opinions, different approaches. And when you learn to negotiate, that's part of conflict resolution, which certainly many middle schoolers and high schoolers can benefit from. So I do want us to start bringing in these skills earlier, but because it doesn't mean taking others away, it means expanding what we have to cover in school.
So we'll get to this when I get to the plug section, because I have more questions there, but I want to pull the curtain back and learn about you with this stuff. First of all, how long did it take to pull this together, this book?
It took me about 4 months to write it.
Okay.
But the caveat is I've taught it for 20 years. So it was just taking all that, putting it on paper. The production turned out to be a little more complicated, and there were delays with COVID, but eventually got through it. And then the app took a little extra time.
When it comes to teaching, being a writer, and helping to advise people with all the things that you do from that like technology component of it, that's a lot of different hats, a lot of different places to step in. Which hat do you like wearing best?
I like them all, which is why I do them all. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't be doing it. And if I only did one thing, I'd probably start to feel a little bit bored.
Okay. So you need the variety. You need the mix up. All right. Yeah. Which means, by the way, Mark, on most days, you're kicking on all cylinders and you're thriving, which is why you're on this program. You're on Thrive Loud. So we know you're already got the game and you're up with it. But everybody, even Mark Herschberg, has days when they're not quite kicking on all cylinders. Mark, when you have trouble thriving, what practice do you seek, or maybe which individual do you seek out to get yourself back on the thriving track?
There are times when you just need to say, I got to step back. I am just banging my head against the wall at this point, and I'll go do something else. When I was writing, for example, I'd write until I kind of got exhausted and then, okay, no more words are coming out. Go do something else. There were also times at 3 a.m. I said, I can't sleep. I've got to get these words out. Or I work on my technical projects or other things. So the great thing about having multiple fronts is that when one just isn't going anywhere that day, I can switch and do something else, or just go into down period, watch some TV, do something, just take my mind off.
I'm calling your bluff. Nobody is like you, is sitting down and relaxing. You've got too many things going on. You love what you're doing.
I watch way too much TV, but that helps recharge me. That gets my mind into not the focus mode, but the unfocused mode where random thoughts start to come. And it's actually helpful when I do that.
Have you ever tried meditation? I was going to go here because I'm somebody this active who does this many things, who thinks about all these different activities, all these different interests. Meditation probably pretty good. Maybe that TV is your meditation.
I think TV is. I've tried meditating. It's hard for me. I should go back to doing it, but I cannot quiet my mind. So TV, it's almost like the white noise to me that quiets my mind. I could even do work to TV. I just need something in the background.
I got you. See, we're trying to learn a little bit more about you. I know it's difficult to pull all this stuff back. All right. I want to do the plug section here, but I want to do it into 2 parts. One, share with everyone where they can find you, learn about you, where they can get the book, all the stuff that they can learn about the Mark Herschberg. And you have a bunch of other things you're offering. And then I have some more questions. So I'll hand it to you and then I'll take it back over. Okay, go.
You can go to my website, thecareertoolkitbook.com. There you can learn more about me, follow me on social media, see where to buy the book, Amazon, other places. You can also see additional content I put on the blog. If you go to the app page, you can download the free app for Android and iPhone, which will help you retain the information you get in the book. There's also the resources page with free resources to additional content if you want to go further, as well as, for example, a program to help you train up your entire organization. All of that is completely free, and that's at thecareertoolkitbook.com. There's also my other website, cognoscomedia.com, COGNOSCO, cognoscomedia.com. We're launching the Brain Bump app in about a month, which is similar to my app for my book, but taking all sorts of content, and that's useful for individuals as well as corporate learning and development programs.
These apps that you've created obviously will have updated features as new content or new things come in or new learnings or whatnot. Do you see a future where, one, these career toolkits maybe become more specific to certain types of careers, possibly? Or are those just going to be other iterations or other buttons within the app? I'm curious to know what the franchise of the Career Toolkit looks like down the road.
Great question. I do have additional books I'd like to put out, but right now I think I'm at capacity with everything else I'm doing. And the reason we're creating the Brain Bump app is because there's so much more content from other people that people would like to get and retain. And you can't do that with my app. So we created this general version of the app. So we have other content producers, authors, podcasters, putting their content in there, and people can access what content they want, when and where, which this is a whole other thing. The future of media is about nonlinear access to content.
Like it. I do like that. And that is true. The whole meshing way of finding stuff. Very cool. Excellent stuff, Mark. Mark, before we go to Fun Street, I can't avoid this topic because when I read it early on, I said I have to address it. I knew it in my prep notes, and I'm laughing right now because I read it and I have to understand this. You have tracked criminals and terrorists on the dark web. 1, for what purpose? And 2, what did you find?
There are 2 questions I usually get, and this is one of them. I have been doing in my tech work a lot of cybersecurity. That's what my graduate work at MIT was in. Now, usually it's how do we protect your data? How do we lock things down? This was a little more like spycraft, although it's not as cool as it sounds. Basically, we would go undercover online and hear what the bad guys are doing. What are they planning? When, where, how, why? And we'd use that intelligence and then would share it with corporations and various government agencies. So I would liken us to Paul Revere. Paul wasn't the one shooting at the British, but he said, hey, the British are coming by land or by sea. So I'm letting you guys know so you can best prepare your defenses. That's what we would do.
The world is such a strange place. Mark, literally, I can't even imagine if we have free time. He's going to find some other things on there. Just so now I'm going to ask the question: what was the wackiest or wildest thing that you're allowed to talk about that you found on the dark web?
Oh, there's not much that
much you could share
about, but this is maybe not wackiest, scariest. There's a tool. You might be familiar with the fact that schools used to get bomb threats. Yeah. People would threaten to blow up. You could buy a tool that just lets you send those anonymous threats. Pick the school you want, pick the message you want. Is it a bomb? Is it anthrax? So you don't even have to be technical. And in fact, this underlies what's happening on the dark web, or happened years ago. If you think about our supply chains, we have people who can do things. If you want to make a podcast, you don't have to know how to video edit. Someone else can do it for you. You don't have to know how to promote it. Hire someone who's an expert in promotion. The same thing happens on the dark web. You have experts in particular skill sets, and they create these supply chains where everyone does their expertise. And you at the end can be mildly competent and yet benefit from the expertise of others.
Permission to go down Fun Street, Mark Herschberg, with me here.
Please, we need to after that dark.
I'm not going down the dark web. I'm going to the bright side of things. Mark, can you share with the listeners what you shared with me was your all-time favorite movie?
The Longest Day.
Why does that movie connect so much with you?
I think it's because when I was a kid, it comes on every June 6th and 7th. They show it in 2 parts. My dad would watch the movie, and I would watch it with my dad. And I think there's just this connection. I have fond memories of being with my dad watching. Plus, it's a great movie and has basically every star from the period in it.
That is true. And it's a good one. I was trying to see why that one connected with you, but I like it. Father-son relationships. Very, very cool. All right. We are going to do the speed round here at Fun Street. And this is how we roll. I'm going to ask you something, and I want the first thing that comes to your mind. These are things that normally lift you up, motivate you, make you feel good, basically make you thrive. Ready to roll?
I am.
Okay. Of late, a song that you like to listen to, or maybe one that pumps you up.
Pump up song. I don't listen to much music lately.
Obviously, you have ambient noise of television in the background. There's nothing to get through this brain of Mark Herschberg.
But I would say something that picks me up would be Fever.
Oh, okay.
I was a competitive ballroom dancer, and so there's a lot of ballroom music. Even though the tempo might be slower than a lot of modern songs, I think of myself dancing to it, and that gets me going.
How is competitive ballroom dancing not on like your main bio? I mean, like on a serious note, like that should be like the thing that everybody would want to know about you. I would have just spent the whole 20 minutes on that over here.
That's the other question I usually get. I had to cut down my bio for you. That's why I cut that
He has so many things going on in his life. Mark Herschberg is just a man of everything. A favorite food that is not a dessert?
Polio string cheese.
Is that really a food? Hold on one second. It's not really a food. It's polio.
It is totally a food. And if I have any addiction in life, that is it.
What is your favorite dessert?
Chocolate chip cookies or ice cream?
Oh, chocolate chip cookies or ice cream. And what flavor ice cream?
Classic vanilla. Breyer's natural vanilla. That is number 1 for me.
Definitely a New York City guy right there, picking out the Breyers out of the frozen, because that's what you can get in any of the supermarkets there. An activity you wish you did more of?
I wish I got to do more ballroom dancing.
All right. An activity you wish you did less of?
Responding to emails.
I hear you. You're gonna invent something that automatically replies for everything with an answer and a solution and the right answer. I know it's coming. If I could snap my fingers, Mark Herschberg, and you could be anywhere in the world, where are you?
I'd be on the streets defending Ukraine right now.
Well played. Check you out. Go you. And let's hope some things calm down over there sooner than later. Mark Herschberg, seriously a pleasure to have you on. I literally have to come up with a new name for you, because you're more than the Career Toolkit. Like, you're the complete toolkit. You are the Swiss Army knife of the Thrive Loud podcast. Is that fair? Can we go with that?
I am multi-purpose.
In the shape of a brass rat, I think would be the logo that you would have on there. Truly a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me on the show.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep moving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.